Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in live to Tearing Down Babylon. Man, it is exciting as we come to understand and to the realization of tearing down Babylon. For those of you who are just joining in, tearing down Babylon is removing the man-made perspective to unveil the God-made perspective. Let me say this again. Tearing down Babylon is removing the man-made perspective to unveil the God-made perspective. Why is that so important? This is the reason why. You and I were created in a divine form, in a divine intention. So with that, when you unveil the God perspective, you now begin to operate in your divine nature. And when you operate in your divine nature, then will you truly access the kingdom of heaven, which is right here dwelling on this earth. So again, thank you so much. Today, we've learned so many different facets in this series, Tearing Down Babylon. But today we're going to learn one of the facets of love. And the reason why we are coming to the realization and really studying and exploring the different facets of love, why? Because this entire universe was created by love. So when you understand what true love is, you understand not just your divine nature, but the nature of this universe. So we have now explored love is patience. We spoke about the power of patience. We have explored the power of kindness, because love is patient, love is kind. And where some of you who are just tuning in are asking, well, where do you find the definition of love? The definition of love is discovered or explored in the sacred text in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, 4 through 8. Now, with that, love is patient, love is kindness, and of course, in this episode, we're going to talk about how love does not envy. Love does not envy. Man, a lot of people would solve so many problems if they just was not envious. Envy really hurts a lot of people, and envy drives a lot of people as well. But it's not a good motivator. Why? Because that is outside of your divine nature. So when it's declared in the sacred text that love does not envy. Well, what is envy? Envy, the word envy, comes from, it's a description. It's a description of a feeling. It's a description of a motive. It's a description of an intention. What's the feeling? What's the motive? And what's the intention? The feeling of envy comes when you feel that you want something more than what you currently already have. Envy is when you see someone with something, be it a talent or an actual tangible item, when you see someone with that thing and you now envy that, okay? The reason why envy is not a good thing, and it's actually against your divine nature, is envy comes from a feeling, okay? So envy is a feeling, but what we've explored and what we declared in our previous episode is that your feelings is a manifestation of your thought process. Your feelings is a manifestation of your thought process. So when you're feeling envious that, man, that person can do this, I'm envious, or that person has this, I'm envious, it's because your thought process is coming not from a thought process of abundance, but it's coming from a thought process of I am lacking. And that's what produces envy. So the question is, what are you lacking? Because according to the sacred text, what we've learned is that your divine nature has everything. Your divine creator gave you everything. For crying out loud, your divine creator said you live in heaven. So what are you lacking? Hosea 4:6 declares, my people, this is your divine creator speaking, my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. The reason why people become envious is they lack the knowledge that they already have access to everything that they desire and even want. And what kind of knowledge do they lack? Number one, they lack that basic knowledge. And number two, they lack the knowledge of spiritual transfer. They lack the knowledge that they don't understand that they live in an interdimensional world, spiritual and physical. So the moment you desire something, it's already manifested. Where? In the spiritual world. But we also live in a tangible world. So if I desire and I've been manifesting all these beautiful things in the spiritual world, how do I transfer it into my divine nature? Well, one word, love. And that's the reason why we're taking time in each episode to really explore what love is. So when you become patient, when you train yourself, because we've learned love is not a feeling, love is not an emotion. But when you train yourself to be patient, guess what? You're operating in your divine nature. When you train yourself to be kind, and it comes from your heart, now you're operating in your divine nature. When you train yourself to not be envious, which means you adopt and acquire the knowledge that you already have everything. And envy comes, like I said earlier, from the feeling that I don't have. But your creator says, I've given you everything. So really what you don't have is knowledge. That's what you don't have. And that's why people are envious. So with the word envy, I'm going to share this with you all. That envy comes, I'm just going to type it right here. Okay. Envy develops when an individual compares themselves to someone else. Envy comes when an individual compares themselves to someone else. Why is it so important for us not to compare ourselves to others? Here's the reason why. In the sacred text, it reveals God created, the divine supreme being, created you and I in His image and in His likeness. So when He says, according to the sacred text, that there is no other above me, and you've been created in His image and likeness, what He's telling you is, look, I created you so unique, one of a kind, and so what happens is when you lack knowledge, the real reality is you lack knowledge. When you do that and you compare yourself to someone else and you start envying something, what you're really doing is telling your creator that you didn't create me in the best way. That's what you just told your creator, that you didn't create me in the best possible way. Why? Because you lack knowledge. So here it is. Think about this. Think about this really clearly. Your divine creator creates you so unique and so powerful and gives you the universe. And yet because of your lack of knowledge, you turn around, envy what someone else has, or envy someone else's, being, And in your spiritual nature, you're telling your Creator, thank you, but no thank you. That's a major insult. So this is what happens when you envy, okay? So envy, again, envy is a feeling of wanting someone else or something else other than what you already have. And the feeling comes from the thought process that you are lacking. That's what envy comes from. But let's go into the sacred text and discover what envy does to you. Okay? What envy does to all of us. And that's the reason why we cannot operate with envy. Here it is. Oh, I just had it. In Proverbs 14:30, okay? According to the sacred text, in Proverbs 14:30, it says, a heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. Envy rots the bones. How does envy rot our bones? Well, first of all, do you know, and if you've been tuning into our previous episodes, you would know this. Everything in this universe is frequency. Okay? When we first learned, God spoke, the supreme, divine spoke. That's a frequency. That's a sound. What you're hearing right now over the radio waves and over the air waves is called a combination of sounds. We call it words, but words are a combination of sounds. So these sounds, these combination of sounds allow you to understand what I am communicating to you. So when you envy, okay, that energy is now produced in you. And that production of energy, remember, comes from the thought process of I am lacking. So what you're really doing is you are manifesting your own lack of. Rather than acquiring the knowledge and saying, wait a minute, my divine creator gave me everything. First of all, he created me in his image and in his likeness, meaning you were created to be an extension of God. Yes, you were created to be an extension of God. God is smart, you're smart. God is love, you're love. God can, say no to evil and yes to good, and you can say no to evil and yes to good. See, it's proof. You have the same ability. Hear me clearly on this. You have the same ability as God. Now, some people might say, my goodness, that's sacrilege because God is God. Last I checked, He created you and I in His image, in His likeness, simply meaning God needed an extension of Himself, millions of extensions of Himself, so that He can create a perfect universe. Isn't that a thought? His will, His initial intention was to create a perfect world, both spiritual and physical. So as an extension of Him, you and I, our goal in this life is to extend the nature of God in this earth system that we exist in currently right now. So now that we understand that if our duty, our obligation is to extend God, the will of God, the intention of God, the nature of God into this universe, would God create something that is lacking? No, God doesn't lack anything. So therefore you don't lack anything. But you are being destroyed according to the sacred text because you lack knowledge. So I think today the message really is that we must acquire knowledge, and we must consistently acquire knowledge. With that thought process, if you do not acquire knowledge, and the sacred text says, envy rots the bones. Well, here it is. When you envy someone else, you start producing a certain type of frequency, a certain type of energy that is not life, but is death. Remember, there's only two forces in this universe, life and death, light and darkness. So when you start producing this envy, it becomes sin. And sin, the wages of sin, according to sacred text, the wages of sin is death. So with this envious nature, if you choose to indulge, and I'm saying this very clearly and very slowly, when you choose to indulge in your envious nature, you are choosing to indulge in sin. And when you choose to indulge in sin, you're actually choosing to indulge in death. That's what you're choosing to do. Now, if you ask me, I would say, heck no, none of that for me. So here's a solution for those who are envious, or if you find yourself being envious of other people. Gain knowledge. Gain what kind of knowledge? Mathematical knowledge, scientific knowledge? No. Gain knowledge of who you are. And the knowledge I'm sharing with you today is you have been created in the image and the likeness of God. You have been given this entire universe. You have been given the Word of God, which has all authority of spiritual dimension and physical dimension. You have been given all of this. Why? So that you can begin to operate in love. Notice the sacred text, when it talks about love, love is an action. Is it an action for everyone else? It's an action for you. It's a call to action. It's a call to say, hey, if you're an impatient person, start reaching within yourself and saying, I need to be more patient, and start practicing it. And you will start to discover where your impatientness or your impatient nature comes from. Also, here's what I'm just going to share, this little testimony. When I started to take my journey in practicing love, I used to be very impatient. And then I decided, you know what? I want some spiritual authority. I want some legit universal authority to manifest the things that are in my heart. So first thing I did is I started to practice patience. Now, it was a physical practice at first, and I shared with you all before that when I was at the DMV, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm impatient, but I'm practicing patience. And did you know something? I didn't really understand the deeper side of it, but as I started to practice it, a revelation came to me that people who are impatient are selfish. People who are impatient are selfish. Now, that divine revelation was for me, but I'm sharing that divine revelation to all you impatient people out there, that when you find yourself impatient, you actually are revealing a selfish nature of yourself. Why? Because when you are selfish in your thought process, remember, feelings is a manifestation of your thoughts. In your thought process, you're saying, my time is more valuable than yours. My time is more valuable than yours. My needs are better than yours. My operation needs to be more priority than yours. That's really, in the impatient nature of someone, that's really what is happening, is they are saying with their body language and their emotional language, they're saying, I am more valuable than you. So therefore, that's selfishness. So with that selfishness, guess what? I personally, when I took my journey, I said, well, I don't want that in me. So I had to go deeper within myself and remove that selfishness. And guess what? Now I value everyone's time. And when I began to value everyone's time, I realized the universe started to open up more time for me. I now have more time to do this. I have more time to do that. People have come to me and say, you look like you're on permanent vacation. You're just floating on by. It's because I now understand the concept of time. That in love, you now transcend out of time and you dwell in a whole different dimension. When I practice kindness, same thing. Kindness actually disciplines you. It's a disciplinary measure. It disciplines you to put the needs of others before you. Notice something. Love is taking yourself and putting it in the back seat and saying, look, let me put the needs of others before, and let me help support. It's a whole different perspective. But with that, I'm telling you something. So many powerful things have started to happen in my life. And according to the sacred text, it says this: to him who is able to do over and abundantly all that you think or ask, meaning this is God speaking, his divine nature is able to do over and abundantly all that you can even think or ask. But here's the thing, he can only operate, he can only manifest. The divine nature of God can only manifest based on the power that works in you. So if you got no love working in you, you'll be like many, many Christians who are praying for 30 years for something and never happening. Why? Because they got no love in them. You can be like a lot of people saying all these wonderful things, but never reaching and transforming or being a vessel to transform the lives of people. Why? Because you have no love in you. So remember, this entire universe is created by one frequency, and that is called love. And in conclusion, today's message, today's lesson is love does not envy. Why? Because I come from a divine nature. I come from a divine source. I have everything. I have everything. I don't need to want what someone else has. I don't need to want that particular lifestyle or that particular vehicle or that particular house. And you know what? I tell you something. When people stop envying others, they will save themselves a lot of stress. They will save themselves a lot of financial distress. All of these things. I've met people who have multi-million-dollar mortgages all because they wanted to live where other people, in their envy nature, other people are. What was wrong with the place that you're at? You know? And it's nothing wrong to be successful. There's nothing wrong with that. But when your heart's nature starts to envy, I want, you're actually telling your divine creator, you didn't give me. That's very opposite from what he already declared. And again, envy rots your bones. Even your bones give off a certain energy. So when you're envious of something or someone, you are actually destroying yourself. And in my last, I just want to reveal this because you know what? The real estate market is crazy here in Hawaii, and I'm going to just share this. I've met so many individuals who have emailed me and even just met me in person, and they're in financial distress because their mortgages are so high. And I asked them this question: did you need an expensive house like that? Could you not have waited? We're going through an economic recession. You could have just waited till then, but instead they were envious. They were envious. I need it now. My friends have a house. I need it now. My friends have this, they live in this kind of neighborhood, so I need it now. Well, so what you're saying is you need your distress now. That's what you're really saying. So again, guys, get ourselves in perspective. Get ourselves in perspective.
Get ourselves in perspective.
All right, and thank you all for joining us in our live studio. And I wanted to take a moment to just give a shout out to Dr. Amir. Some of you have been noticing that I've been smiling more often. Well, he has assisted me in constructing a beautiful smile. So if you need a beautiful smile and to look fabulous, Dr. Amir from Lihui Dental helped me, and he can definitely help you all. So I just wanted to say thank you so much. Mahalo, love you, and keep smiling, everybody. Thank you all.